Thank you, Sharon. Apologies for the light condition on this side, but yeah, thank you for the invitation. Very happy to be here with you. I am Soad Chambazi. I am a sustainability analyst for I mainly focus on cobalt, but I have other general knowledge about other critical minerals. I work for Benchmark Mineral Intelligence, and for people who are not familiar with the name, Benchmark is a market intelligence company. So we provide data for the whole supply chain of the EV batteries. Let me just share my slides with you guys. I hope you can see. Oops, I kind of started from the middle of the presentation. Today we are going to speak about sustainability in critical minerals. So for people who are not very or who are not very familiar with critical minerals, it just means that these are minerals that are deemed very, very important to the energy transition, or basically the energy transition won't happen without these minerals, and they are mainly in batteries and such as nickel, lithium, cobalt, but there are other critical minerals such as I think aluminium and manganese, but this is the definition of critical minerals. So a lot of people might ask why it is very important to speak about sustainability in critical minerals, or why companies should focus on sustainability in critical minerals, but there are definitely two very, very important factors. The first one is regulation. There are lots of regulations and policymakers that are pushing for increased transparency in the supply chain. We have seen the EU battery regulation, the CSRD, the Corporate Sustainability Directive that France has introduced into its national law recently. And yeah, so there are a lot of focus from regulation and policymakers. Of course, this creates a complex landscape for companies, for miners and refiners, and the rest of the industry. But especially from like also standard points of view, some standards and just initiatives, but there is kind of people are trying to consolidate these standards into one, and I think the ICMM, the International Council on Metals and Mining, is trying to do something in regards to that. The second factor is the downstream expectations and just consumers wanting more basically wanting more transparency and better ESG commitments from companies or from the upstream, which is what I cover for people who are not familiar with downstream and upstream. So if you have like the supply chain of the whole battery, so you have the upstream, which is mining and refining companies. You have midstream, which is cathode and anode manufacturers, and cathode and anode are just the battery parts that goes later to the downstream, which is the battery production, and later you go to EV manufacturing. So we are seeing a lot of focus from downstream companies to require and or asking for higher ESG standards from upstream companies. Of course, this also has its own challenges. For example, our clients, for example, they find it a little bit hard for some ESG risks to be quantifiable. You have some things like carbon emissions, which are not easy, but there is a methodology that you can calculate carbon emissions, but there are other risks that are a little bit harder to quantify or put an objective value on. And the industry definitely needs to create more technical capacity there. Now, what Benchmark has done through the years is we have created the Benchmark Sustainability Index, which is it kind of allows the industry to, or it allows to gauge the industry's commitments from an ESG point of view, especially upstream companies, i.e. mining and refining companies. And it just allows also those companies to see where are the gaps in their ESG commitments. It's an amalgamation of international standards. So you can, we have 26 themes with all sorts of indicators, but one bedrock of the index is also engagement with international and local NGOs, just to get a roundup idea of all the concerns, because some standards cover or don't cover all the concerns that are out there in the industry. And yeah, they cover governance, environment and social indicators. And then those are boiled down to like specific indicators, and then the indicators will feed into an average score for the companies, and then a classification. Now I'm going to just give you a kind of some of the results of the index for different critical minerals. I'm well aware that the audience, or we might have an audience that is interested in different minerals, not just cobalt. So that's why I kind of did 3 critical minerals with 3 different main topics of concerns from an ESG point of view. And I think nickel and biodiversity has been the talk of the town lately in the critical mineral sphere, because the production in Indonesia is ramping up very quickly. And as you already know, or you might know, Indonesia is a very, very biodiverse country. It has 17% of the world's wildlife, and it's the 3rd largest rainforest in the world. And the nature of nickel in Indonesia is called nickel laterite, which means it's a nickel that comes on the surface. So it's not deep in the ground. So in order to get a lot of ore, you need to kind of do a lot of deforestation and a lot of land use change in order to get high quantities of ore. So that's why there was a lot of focus on biodiversity threat that comes from either deforestation or biodiversity harm coming from water pollution. So it's either terrestrial deforestation or marine pollution. And as you can see here, the results of the index shows that the companies are a little bit reluctant to take commitments or to make commitments to combat biodiversity threat. Some of them, they say it's hard to quantify, but there are standards out there, and there are tools to help to quantify biodiversity. But it's definitely a very, very important topic to make into consideration, specifically that there is a lot of focus from also like governments on biodiversity and asking for higher biodiversity standards, especially in Europe. And of course, like companies should start with monitoring, because you can't remediate something that you are not monitoring. There is also something called the mitigation hierarchy, which is something developed by, I'm not sure who developed the mitigation hierarchy, to be honest, but the main premise of it is to start with, first of all, avoidance. So you don't need to harm the biodiversity and then kind of remediate. So you need to start with avoidance. Then you need to minimize your impact as much as possible. Then if there is no way around it, you move to remediation of harm. But as I said before, if you are, if companies don't know how to deal with these subjects, there are loads of industry bodies and standards out there that can share the technical knowledge with these companies. The second critical mineral is cobalt. Cobalt was last year's talk of the town due to prices, but all issues around traceability, ASM, sustainability, and responsible sourcing and responsible supply chain. As you can see, our index also shows that companies, refiners that they report better on having responsible sourcing or following the OECD due diligence guidance, as is kind of the mainstream standard or process. This is very, very important because there are loads of regulations that are coming also into place for responsible sourcing. We have for example, the EU Parliament is the EU Council and Parliament as well. They kind of agreed on, on the corporate sustainability due diligence directive, which kind of asks companies to show like the commitments or the human rights and ESG commitments of their whole supply chain. So it's a very, very important topic from a regulation point of view as well. But ultimately, the goal is not just to add more obstacles for miners and refiners, but it's also to help them manage and mitigate the potential risks that can impact their activities, especially with other topics such as indigenous people. We have seen multiple instances where there were riots and manifestations from indigenous people, and mining and refining projects were stopped or delayed just because of the riots and just because indigenous people's rights and free prior informed consent were not taken into consideration. So this is really for the benefit of the society, but it also for the benefit of the miners and the refiners as well. And lastly, the holy grail of battery materials, lithium, and carbon footprint, and like everything around carbon. Carbon has been also a major topic, and when we speak with companies, it seems like it is at the top of their agenda. But as you can see, the results also of our index shows that companies they don't publicly report that they have carbon footprint or doing anything to kind of calculate and report on their footprint, and then having a net zero target. And if you don't know your carbon footprint, you won't have like a robust roadmap towards net zero targets. And also, this is an important thing because all what's happening with the EU battery regulation and the carbon footprint disclosures around that. But carbon is not the whole story. Why I'm talking about this, because we have seen that with nickel prices being very, very low, the industry, or like the upstream miners and refiners that are operating with higher sustainability standards, they were kind of pushing for a premium on their product. So you pay higher prices for example, nickel that is coming from sustainable sources. But as you can see from our life cycle assessments, for example, for nickel that is coming from RKF, which is a process that happens also, a refining process that happens in Indonesia, and HPAL, so both of these are in Indonesia. RKF has way higher carbon footprint in comparison to nickel coming from HPAL. But if you are looking to water consumption, HPAL consumes way more water than RKF. So the story is way more nuanced than just focusing on nickel. Focusing on cobalt. I think the LME, the London Metal Exchange, where basically it's the body where some of these critical minerals and nickel is traded. They said last year that, or with the push of the industry for more sustainable prices, they said if they will consider the criteria, it will be carbon. So materials with carbon with higher or with lower carbon footprint will have the premium. But as I said before, the story is not just about carbon, and this is the premise of sustainability in general. It's to have a benefit for the society, for the environment, and for everybody. But focusing on carbon only, I think it's kind of a reductive view to sustainability. But I know there are a lot of people who are saying that mining companies and refining companies are not doing very well from a sustainability point of view, but there is definitely, or we have seen definitely improvements from the past 5 years and the past 10 years, and the ESG scene or the sustainability scene is not static, with more regulation coming into place, with more pressure coming from downstream and consumers, and also more technical capacity added, and pricing mechanisms such as benchmark sustainability prices. These are mechanisms that help the industry manage or engage with these topics. We'll definitely see more focus on sustainability issues. And yeah, that was me. Please, if you have any questions, go on, Sarah.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Soad. Absolutely brilliant. Everyone, round of applause for the fabulous Soad. We're just going to stop sharing your screen. There we go.
Thank you.
We've got time for just, I think, a couple of very, very quick questions, Soad. In terms of where you're getting the data from to then go into your index, is that coming from the public domain, or are you getting companies to submit information directly to yourselves?
No, all the data is from public domain. So everything that gets published on the company's website, and investor presentations. So yeah, and we use other like external websites as well, but it's all in the public domain.
Okay, and just with regards to the pricing side of things, I'm going to bring Ludovine to the fore, because I know that Ludovine had a question for you just on that pricing angle.
Thank you, Sarah. So thanks very much for explaining this. I think a lot of people perhaps don't always know what pricing agencies actually do. So very good to explain that. I just wanted to spotlight you recently launched a sustainable nickel price, even as the LME announced, I think mid-March, that it didn't quite see a market. I was hoping you could perhaps explain to us sort of what's driving the offer of this sustainable nickel pricing from Benchmark, and why it's relevant from an agency like Benchmark, irrespective of what a market like the LME would determine.
Well, Ludovine, unfortunately, I'm not like the proper expert for pricing, but I can give you a kind of a general answer to that. And I think when we speak with industry or with our clients or with the industry, they show interest in a sustainability price. Now, I don't know how, to be honest, how our sustainability, how our pricing team collects the data or the prices, but I can give you how the sustainability price is being collected. So just to let you know, we don't affect the prices in any sort of way, but basically our pricing team, they just collect their prices as they do usually, but they look through the lens of prices coming from industry leading companies. And that's the price that that gets published as we have nickel and lithium prices. But we have seen interest from the industry to publish a sustainability price. I know the LME, as I said before, they said they are not interested in sustainability price, but they will probably focus on carbon or products with lower carbon footprints. But as I said before, it's a way more. We believe that benchmark is a bigger picture, or way more important to sustainability is way more important to just reduce it to a carbon footprint, basically. Yeah, we have definitely seen interest from the industry to kind of issue a sustainability price when we speak with our clients and companies.
Thanks very much.
Fantastic.
No problem, Vivian.
Brilliant. Well, with that, thank you very, very much, Soad. Absolutely fantastic. And yes, for just my 10 cents, I couldn't agree with you more in that sustainability is about way more than just carbon. So fantastic. Thank you very much.